Wakati mgumu ati leo tunaenda huko Murang'a kuzika nyanya ya bibi ya Simon. Next sasa ni mazishi ya Simon.
Huwezi jua ati uko unakaa umenyongwa, umevujika koo, umevujika mkono, ati alafu uko umejiangusha. My husband, dada mwenye anaweza simama sai a witness, ni mtu ana ubaya na mtu.
Nataka tujue in how state Simon aliingia kwa cell. Na kama alikuwa alive, mbona atoka kwa cell kama yuko?
Alikuwa happiness yetu, alikuwa happiness ya mtoi. But chenye nitasema, whoever did that to him, akuwe na mali, akuwe na power, kuna Mungu. Kilio yenye mtoto wangu ako nayo sahi, haizi lala ataka babake. Simu ikipigwa ni daddy. That pain iko kwa innocent child. Because of someone, itakufuata.
At this point in time, the OCS of Central Police Station Mombasa should have been suspended. The officers who were present on that fateful night when Simon Warui lost his life should have been suspended to pave way for investigations.
Right now, let's talk matters politics. The Labour Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka has declined an invitation from ODM leader Raila Odinga to attend the Orange Democratic Movement's 20th anniversary celebrations scheduled from October 10th. Speaking to the press, Kalonzo confirmed that he received a formal invitation letter from Odinga recognizing him as one of the party's founding members. However, he stated that he will not attend the event. Now, the ODM anniversary is expected to bring together party members, leaders, and supporters to reflect on the party's 2 decades in Kenya's political landscape.
Tell you what I've seen on the table, ni kwamba Raila Odinga ameniandikia barua, a very nice letter. My dear brother, as a founder member of ODM, all right, ninakualika kwa shughuli. There will even be a dinner event on the 10th. And unfortunately, I'm going to reply and Mwambi on the 10th, we will have the National Delegates Congress of Wiper Patriotic Front. Kwa hivyo mimi sitafika huko. I wish them well. I wish them well. I gather William Ruto will also be invited as a founder member, but I will not be there. I hope I've answered you. No, I haven't answered you. There's nothing on the table. We have seen that. We have seen that, therefore it cannot. And by the way, you realize I'm perhaps one of the principals. Of course, you know that. So I cannot jibu swala hilo. Tulisema Raila akiona mambo ni magumu kule, he's one of us. I respect him, I've said that. I respect my friend Raila Odinga. I've spent a sizable chunk of my own life supporting him and standing with him. I repeat, I've spend a sizable chunk of my own life on earth supporting Raila Odinga. So, Mimi, I don't want to say anything more than that. We have nothing on the table.
Now, tensions was witnessed in Kasipul constituency, Homa Bay County, after violent clashes broke out during the Orange Democratic Movement party nominations. According to eyewitnesses, supporters of 2 rival aspirants engaged in running battles, leading to the destruction of at least 10 vehicles. The confrontation disrupted the nomination exercise as police were called in to restore order. Now, the incident comes as other political parties continue to intensify their campaigns ahead of the upcoming by-elections in the constituency. Authorities have urged calm and warned that perpetrators of violence will face legal action.
We're still not sure with this nomination if it is going to be free and fair. That is the situation we are in. We have a lot of things that we have been solving since morning. The POs, they were not even trained, according to my knowledge now, because when we were there at the meeting in the morning, some were not even aware that there's an election going on.
Let's keep calm, let's maintain peace, let's embrace peace. At the end of the day, we only need one candidate.
It's only 1 year, mwaka moja, tusipopata mtu ambaye atabadilisha kusukuma maendeleo Malava, kwa sababu mmerudi nyuma, itakuwa ni kibarua kikubwa. Watu tusungumziane, watu tutembee pamoja.
Upinzani hauna barabara. Kwa upinzani hakuna stima. Kwa upinzani hakuna maji. Kwa upinzani hakuna soko. Kwa upinzani
Now let's talk matters education. And lecturers and university staff have vowed to resume work, or rather not to resume work, until the government settles the outstanding arrears amounting to 7.9 billion Kenya shillings. Now the strike now in its second week, so the educators and staff staged demonstrations to the National Assembly and the National Treasury where they presented their grievances. They also criticized the Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migos Ogamba for issuing the threats instead of offering a lasting solution to their demands. The striking workers maintained that they will not return to class they will only return to class until their dues are fully paid, urging the government to engage in a constructive dialogue and end the stalemate.
The other time, is it? And you know very well in a contract, when the two enter into a contract, they must honor it. Yes. You know that? Yes. So be assured that the document is at the right place, is it?
We have brought officially the petition to this August House because it is here where budgets and government money are appropriated. And therefore, we must bring it here and ensure that they, as they appropriated that money, they must tell the relevant government agencies to pay us our 7.9 billion.
Right now, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna has criticized the government, accusing it of failing to respect court orders regarding the implementation of the Electronic Government Procurement EGP system. Speaking on the floor of the National Assembly, Sifuna clarified that lawmakers are not opposed to the use of technology in procurement processes, but emphasized that the government must comply with the existing court rulings before rolling out such systems. He argued that continuing with the implementation of EGP despite the court orders undermines the rule of law and sets a bad precedent for governance.
We have actually suggested and will be proposing to this House that the best ranking for county government performance can only come from the Senate. It can only come from the Senate and its committees. You combine all these reports of all these counties, Education Committee, the Health Committee, the County Public Accounts Committee, and then you as a Senate can give an objective ranking as opposed to these posters who, as you've heard accusations flying around from the majority leader, are not very reliable. Honorable Speaker, on e-government procurement, I also want to just add my voice to the sentiments that have been expressed by my colleague from Narok, that in fact, that EGP, and I believe there was a court order that stopped the implementation of that EGP, but because this government is not known for respecting court orders, they have chosen to ignore this one as well. We want to advise the National Treasury that nobody has anything against technology. Nobody has anything against deploying technology in procurement. In fact, we believe in its ability to be able to bring greater transparency to some of the happenings. And when majority leader referred to the SHA system, I was just laughing because immediately this government realized that Kenyans are going through every payment on the SHA website. What did they do? They pulled it down. They pulled the system down so that we could not see which hospitals they were paying. So if we do not have a national commitment to fighting this vice, let us not pretend that technology will come in and be the panacea to all these problems that we have been facing. I want to agree strongly that the e-procurement can be deployed separately without any one government level having to exercise jurisdiction that it does not have over the other governments. So let us have our own EGP at the county levels, let the government at the national level do its own. So, Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I want to conclude by saying I support the report of the committee.
Senator Cherarke.
Now, hundreds of young people thronged the Sangalo campus of Bungoma National Polytechnic to participate in a foreign job recruitment exercise organized under the Ministry of Labour. The exercise attracted job seekers from across the region, with many terming it a golden opportunity to secure employment abroad amid the high unemployment rate in the country. Some of the youth urged the government to relax some of the requirements for foreign job placements, citing financial constraints that make it difficult for them to meet the set conditions.
Vijana kwa sababu kazi Kenya hakuna. Kasonga ametuangaisha left right center. Kazi hapa Kenya ukipata kazi ya shilingi 10,000 wanachukua tax ya shilingi 7,000 kwa shilingi 1,000. Sasa sisi tunasema kazi ya huko juu lazima sisi twende tufanye kazi huko juu tukuje na madola hapa Kenya. Na hapa tubahatishi.
Mimi nashukuru serikali
kwa ajili ya hii fursa ambayo imetupatia kupitia kwa mbunge wa eneo bunge la Kandui kutoka hapa Bungoma National Polytechnic. Nataka kushukuru kwa sababu hii kazi inaenda kutusaidia sana, haswa kama vijana.
Mostly huku Bungoma vijana wengi hatuna kazi, na tumepata opportunity ametuletea kwa shule yetu. Tunaomba Mungu tu apply tuende pia abroad.
Hapo nyuma kumekuwa na zile fake agencies ambazo hazipeleki watu majuu, lakini hapa tumekuja hapa, tuko na officials kutoka the Ministry of Labor, tuko na agencies zote ziko hapa ambazo zinachukua vijana wetu kupeleka majuu. Labda unaweza kuwa hujapata kazi hapa na labda nyota yako iko kule majuu, iko ugaibuni. So tunaambia vijana wetu wajitokeze kwa wingi wapate kwenda ugaibuni, kwa sababu kuna kazi mingi, kuna kazi mingi ambazo ziko kule.
Hii program ya leo imepanua hizo nafasi from what used to be just agriculture, now I think is across the board. Sehemu ya engineering, sehemu za ujenzi, sehemu za hospitality and even business including human resource specialists. Kwa hivyo program imepanuka na tunataka kushukuru serikali kwa njia ya kipekee kwa kubuni hizi nafasi za kazi. Hii inatupea matumaini makubwa kama TVET institutions ya kwamba our graduates will not go to waste. At least watapata nafasi ya kufanya hizo kazi, kama sio kazi ya kuajiriwa, mwenyewe anaweza kujiajiri akipata.
Right, moving on to matters education, the government has directed striking university lecturers to immediately resume duty, warning that the industrial action has already been declared illegal by the courts. Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Migozo Gamba, speaking in Mombasa during the opening of the week-long teachers' conference on pre-service teacher training and employment, urged members of the University Academic Staff Union, that is WASU, to call off the strike which began last week. And as Lisa Mutina now reports, Ogamba cautioned that the withdrawal of service amounts to contempt of court, stressing that the government had already demonstrated goodwill by disbursing 2.73 billion Kenya shillings to address part of the lecturers' demands.
Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba has ordered striking university lecturers to return to work immediately.
So I urge them to go back to school, to class, call off the strike. We will be able to resolve those issues that they have.
Ogamba spoke in Mombasa during the opening of a one-week-long teachers' conference on pre-service teacher training and employment. He warned that the lecturers' strike now, on its second week, has already been declared illegal by the court. Ogamba added that continued withdrawal of services amounts to contempt of court, insisting the government has already shown goodwill by releasing part of the funds.
The main issue was the 2.73 billion which we've released, which was something that we negotiated in the return to work formula last year. It was supposed to be released in July. There was a bit of a delay, but we've released it. So based on that good faith, and based on the fact that we've shown the capacity to negotiate even the hardest issues that they had, it is good for them to go back to class so that studies can continue as we continue negotiating. In any event, there is a court order that has already indicated or informed them that they have a structured conversation outside the strike.
But the University Academic Staff Union maintains that the lecturers will not resume duty until the government clears arrears of 7.9 billion shillings from the 2017-2021 CBA, 2.7 billion from the 2021-2025 CBA, and open talks on the next agreement. On curriculum matters, Ogamba reiterated that there is need for proper training of teachers under the competency-based education system. He also addressed growing calls from junior secondary school teachers for anatomy from primary schools, saying the policy is still under review and a final decision will be announced soon.
Junior school was overwhelmingly recommended by Kenyans to be domiciled in primary schools, and there is a recommendation for a comprehensive system of schools from ECD, primary, JS, comprehensive. So that is where we are at the moment. And that issue that they want to be autonomous is an issue that they raised recently when they came to visit the president. But it is an issue that as we speak today, is part of the reforms that we'll be doing when we do the reforms to the acts, to the statutes, and the policy reforms. So it's not something that it is how do you put this? It is still work in progress. Yes, it's work in progress.
Reporting for EBN TV, I'm Lisa Motinda.
Thank you, Lisa Motinda, for that particular report. Moving on, Interior Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen has issued a stern warning to chiefs and parents in Wajir County against allowing early marriages, stressing that any person under the age of 18 years is considered a child under the Kenyan law. Now, speaking during the Jukwaa la Usalama meetings in Wajir, Murkomen said early marriages remain a major barrier to education and development for girls in the region. He directed local administrators to ensure that all children, particularly girls, remain in school and that perpetrators of child marriages face legal action.
Ya kupenda msichana wa miaka 13 kwa lazima. Mambo ya sexual and gender based violence. Na mtu akiulizwa ati kwa nini mtoto wa miaka 15 amepewa kuolewa, anasema ilikuwa hii ni kawaida ya jamii ya Wasomali. Hakuna kitu kama kawaida. Sheria ya Kenya inasema mtoto under 18 years, any sex with that child you define it. Ni violence. Na hakuna kitu inafanyika kwa jamii bila wazee kujua na machiefs kujua. Chief, kuna kitu mzuri kwa watoto. Kuna chief anasema hajui kitu. Sisi tunajua kila kitu. Lazima tuchukue hatua ya kisheria kuhakikisha ya kwamba hii tabia ya watoto wadogo kuolewa na kuolewa kwa lazima. Nimekuja sasa hivi nimetokea hapa shule ya Wajir girls. Tumepata wasichana wengi wamekuja kuandikisha IDs. Na nimefurahi sana, wako na wasichana 700 wa kutoka hiyo region. Hiyo ndio mwelekeo tunataka kusonga.
Nikiona wasichana wengi sana wa sehemu hii wako shule, wasichana 700, nafurahi sana. Ninajua kwamba nchi yetu na future yenu iko mbele. Mtie mkazo mambo ya masomo. Msikubali mambo ya kuolewa mapema. Muhakikishe kwamba mnasukuma masomo yenu mpaka mfike university, mpaka college, na mtembee katika nchi yetu yote. Nyinyi ndio nguzo ya taifa. Mtakuja kubadilisha nchi yetu baadaye.
Well, it is exactly 25 minutes past the top of the hour. Due for a short breather here on Morning Live. But when we come back, we'll tell you what exactly the newspapers are saying. Don't go too far.
Watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
Are you ready for an uplifting experience? On Your Faith Today, dive deep into the life-changing message from the Word of God. Join Reverend Felix Gavoy as he shares powerful insights that will inspire, encourage, and strengthen your faith.
It is one thing to receive a prophetic word. It is another thing altogether to see that prophetic word come to pass in your life.
But that's not all. Experience special sessions of worship that will stir your soul and draw you closer to God.
You are watching EBN TV, transforming your world.
From Nairobi, Kenya, this is EBN TV.
Alright, welcome back. You're watching Morning Live. My name is Martin Mashara. Now let's take a look at what's making headlines on the daily today. And I'm having the Daily Nation newspaper and the Standard newspaper dated today, the 25th day of September 2025. Now, top story on the Daily Nation says teachers face sack over ghost learners. Now, Education Ministry officials say an audit of learners in 32,000 schools, which has already flagged 50,000 ghost entries, will be completed tomorrow, revealing the full extent of the scandal. Authorities warn that teachers found culpable will face sanctions. And of course, we have been having crises in our education systems. Just yesterday, rather a recent one, we saw that there are schools which are being receiving capitation funds, ghost schools, of course. Now, there are ghost teachers. Now, the Teachers and Education Ministry officials found culpable of inflating school enrollment numbers or giving falsified data to benefit from education funds will face disciplinary measures, including interdiction and transfers. Now, so over 50,000 learners in the ministry records have been flagged as non-existent. Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba said the data clarification exercise the ministry has been conducting since schools opened will be completed tomorrow. Now, the findings will also result in transfers of teachers, especially in schools that are under-enrolled but overstaffed, in a movement to ensure better utilization of resources. Right? He added that he is unsure how long the problem has persisted, since this is the very first time they had taken the data of the children. And according to the disciplinary manual of the public service, penalties meted out vary depending on the nature of severity of offense committed. Now, many offenses may affect verbal or written warnings, with more serious misconducts can result in a formal reprimand from a superior. Right? That's a story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Matters education and teachers face sacking, transfers over ghost learners. Right, now let's take a look on other stories making headlines on the Daily Nation. And JSC fights 8 trillion Kenya shillings suit on rogue judges. Now, the retake firms have sued the Judicial Service Commission, seeking 8 trillion Kenya shillings in compensation for loss of businesses allegedly caused by misconduct of 10 judges in a rather protracted dispute. Now, the petitioners accuse the judiciary of entrenched impunity, but the JSC, led by Chief Justice Martha Koome, has opposed the civil claim. Right, that's story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Matters corridors of justice. And as the administrative head of the judicial arm of the government, she felt the entrenched impunity and malpractices rampant in the judiciary, and which the plaintiffs of several accusations brought to her attention, leading to gross injustice and massive losses against the plaintiffs. Those are the words of petitioners who petitioned the matter in court. That's a story on page 10 of the Daily Nation. Other stories making headlines on the Daily Nation says President reveals fate of missing officer in Haiti. That's on page 2 of the Daily Nation. And in the scorching midday heat, Marsabit, the streets of full silent shops remain closed, border and parked under shades of farmers call it a day. Now, on most days, the sun is too hot to bear by 11 a.m. Locals retreat indoors until the afternoon, or late in the afternoon, when temperatures ease and work can cautiously resume. Now, the daily pause has become a survival strategy in Kenya's north, where climate change is pushing temperatures to punitive extremes. But while it saves lives, it is quietly bleeding away incomes and productivity. Now, a report from the World Meteorological Organization, that is WMO, says climate change and workplace heat stress warns that billions of workers globally are already suffering from the rising heat. Right now, that's a story on page 2 of the Daily Nation newspapers. Matters, hidden cost of heat stress on Kenyan workers. Other story making headlines on the Daily Nation: Kenyan Engineers Global Award win fortifies resolve to eliminate plastics. That's on page 3 of the Daily Nation. And Muchai murder probe 4 have case to answer. Now, 4 men accused of murdering former Kabete Member of Parliament George Muchai, his 2 bodyguards and driver 10 years ago, have been ordered to defend themselves. Justice Kani Kimondo ruled yesterday that Eric Mungera Isabwa, alias Chairman Raphael Kimani Gachi, alias Kimbucha, Mustafa Kimani, alias Mutso, and Stephen Asiva Lipopo, alias Chokore, have a case to answer in the killing of Mr. Muchai. Police Constable Samuel Kimadi and Samuel Alekakeni and driver Stephen Itu Wambugu. Now, the 4 were shot dead at about 3:40 a.m. on February 7th of 2015 at the Kenyatta Avenue Uhuru Highway roundabout. Mr. Muchai had left a hotel in Westlands and stopped to buy newspapers when his car was blocked, and the attackers opened fire at close range. The MP's wife, Susan Nyawira, and her sister, Judy Njoki, were driving ahead in another vehicle when they had gunshots and returned to find the car's occupants fatally wounded. Right now, the court, however, acquitted Jane Wanjiro, Kamau Elias Shiro, Margaret Njeri, and Simon Wambugu Gichamba, citing lack of evidence linking them to the crime. The prosecution had called 36 witnesses, including victims of carjackings allegedly connected to the murder. A G3 rifle believed to have been stolen from police was later recovered from a house in Kino, linked to one of the accused. Now, the defense hearing is set for October 22nd, and the 4 also face separate robbery with violence charges before a magistrate court. Right. Of course, we've seen that this actually a trend. Just a few months ago, we had the Kasipul Member of Parliament being killed. And of course, we have been having legislators being killed. The most recent one is the lawyer, Chalu Mbobo, who was killed, from gunshot wounds at close range when he was heading home from work. Right, that's a matter our national security should consider looking into. Right, now let's take a look on what's making headlines on the Standard newspaper dated today, the 25th day of September 2025. Now, top story on the Standard newspaper says insensitive. Right, and there is a picture there of the head of state, that is President William Ruto, and there is a quote there of His Excellency saying, and I quote, "I must use this opportunity to honor the Kenyan officers Samuel Tombei, Benedict Kabiru, and Kennedy Nzubi, who lost their lives early in the line of duty." That's the words of President William Ruto during the UN Assembly in New York on September 23rd of 2025. Now, the family of the slain officer, Benedict Kabiru, was still pleading with police bosses and are petitioning the courts for answers when President William Ruto dropped a bombshell at the UN General Assembly, declaring Kabiru among 3 Kenyans killed in Haiti. Now, the revelation blindsided relatives who insist they were never formally informed. Now, for months, they have endured silence from the states, the Inspector General, and even the Attorney General's office. Now, they are left reeling and grappling with not just Kabiru's death, but a chilling reminder of a government that buries truth in the protocol, forcing grieving families to learn of their loved ones' fate from international podiums. All right, that's the story on page 4. And let's take a look on that particular story. And before we take a look at that particular story on page 4, there is a quote there of the mother of the missing officers, that is Jacinta Wanjiro, says, and I quote, says, "Why do I have to learn of my son's death through social media and form a speech abroad?" Now, since we have knocked on doors seeking answers in vain, what exactly are they not telling us? Those are the words of the mother, that is Jacinta Wanjiko, whose picture is there actually crying. And you can see, the loss in her eyes. Now let's take that particular story on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. And since the government announced the mysterious disappearance in March, reportedly during an ambush, days have followed into weeks and weeks into months for his family. Each attempt to seek answers has been met with silence. Right now, instead of political theater of confusion has unfolded a ping pong of statements that have exposed a government seemingly detached from human suffering, treating its own citizens with chilling indifference. Now, the detachment was underscored by President William Ruto, blanked communications which breached established protocols for death notifications within the security services. Now, the shocking news of Kabiro's death was dropped into the public domain in a manner devoid of compassion or dignity of the nation's General Assembly, that is UNGA in New York, where the president is currently in during the UN 80th meetings in New York. Now, the shocking news, the revelation was thunderbolt that shocked Kabiru's small village in Kiambu, plunging it into despair of anger. Right, that's the story on page 4 and 5 of the Standard newspaper. And I don't know what's your take on that, learning of your relative's death, from news. All right? Quite unfortunate story right there. Right now, President William Ruto, also in New York, says Ruto backs two-state solutions and end Israel-Palestine conflict. Now, the head of state has supported calls for two-state solution for Israel and Palestine to end the long-standing conflict. Now, Ruto said Kenya was concerned by the humanitarian crisis in Gaza caused by the military operations, while calling for a credible political process that will see residents of the two states live together peacefully. Now, the president, who was addressing the United Nations General Assembly debate in the New York yesterday, said the protection of civilians and respect for humanitarian law cannot be applied selectively. Now, Ruto also condemned the worsening crisis in Sudan and supported the peace initiative led by Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and the US. He lauded the United Nations, noting that for 80 years it has tried to end conflicts in the world's most dangerous nations while coordinating efforts to fight smallpox, HIV, Ebola, and COVID-19, and it currently stands at crossroads with a need for renewal with a quest for global peace. Right, so the story on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. Also, a story that has been making headlines recently. A new video shows how CELP's last moments as keen demand justice. Now, the mystery surrounding the death of domestic worker at an apartment in Kilimani, Nairobi, deepened as a gruesome video on her last moments surfaced. Yesterday, family members, friends, and relatives demanded justice for Zaituni Kavaya, as colleague workers protested. Now, the amateur video shows Kavaya hanging onto the grills on a third-floor balcony at the Mpuga Gardens apartments with one hand. Now, the demonstrators dismissed suggestions that she took her own life, insisting that she was murdered. Now, the protesters marched from Kibera to Mpuga Gardens, Kilimani police station, and the city mortuary where the body of the 55-year-old lies. And according to her colleagues, Jane Mosembi Kavaya had been asked to report to work alone on the day she died. Now, she narrated that how Kavaya's daughter called her on that evening, or the following day, saying the mother had not returned home. Right, that's quite an unfortunate story right there on page 5 of the Standard newspaper. I don't know if you have seen that particular video. Is currently, surfing across the social media platforms, showing, the deceased Kavaya, hanging on the balcony with one hand. Right? Reports say she murdered herself, but according to protesters, she says she was murdered. Right? That the justice will be served to the bereaved families, and of course, for Kavaya. Right? That's what's making headlines on our dailies today. I was having the Standard newspaper and the Daily Nation newspaper this particular morning. This is exactly 43 minutes past the top of the hour. We're taking a short breather here on the program, but when we come back, we're going to talk matters business on how to build a lasting legacy in business. All right, do stay tuned in for that particular conversation that's coming up to you in a few after the break. Don't go too far.